The Value of Peace by Fabian Avila, a Book of Liberties. July 4, 2016. Overview. The Value of Peace describes the utility of peace as an important approach for economic growth and national building processes. The Value of Peace also describes the word value in all its meanings, to include moral and monetary values. This is a pragmatic book based on objective and utilitarian theories and methods. It utilizes a logical and empirical comparison of the world historical dynamics in order to find the value of peace via the four methods of international relations analysis, to include personal, local, state, and international levels. We must remember that every human utilitarian process begins at the micro level, as it is a process that is established to improve the utility and gratifications of the human being at its core, by igniting change at the personal level where all the real change happens, when there is a broad proof of utility for the human being. Therefore, this book strives to find utilitarian outcomes for the practices of peace by linking moral values and behaviors at the personal and national levels with economic gain, prosperity, and progress. The book also tries to empower the human being towards becoming the most important element for change within its environment and its societies by offering personal enlightenment methods, processes, and tools in order to take control and charge of their lives when everything else seems to be out of control. The Value of Peace then moves into the local, national, and international levels of analysis by offering its socioeconomic and macroeconomic findings of the benefits of peace to all its readers, by contrasting and comparing countries and regional data sets on the variables of economic growth and its relationship to peace. Our data sets comparison includes a contrast of gross domestic products, quality of life indexes, and other socioeconomic data samples between multiple different nations in the world. By showing raw evidence and accurate results of the benefit of peace at the local, national, and international levels, this book aims to encourage the practices and maximization of peace by illustrating and identifying those nations whose entire society live under a balanced justice system and showcasing them and their democratic attributes as important and unique variables for domestic peace and progress. Democratic societies are usually more prone to find a reciprocal peaceful conduct within all its citizens, in nations where the judicial system is humanistic and strong. We can also observe that those nations who have a balanced justice system at their core have higher national economic prosperity and higher quality of life indexes than those nations without a balanced judicial system. Observing peace as the means and the ends for the activation of change at the local, domestic, and international systems of justice across the world, this book also highlights and compares the legal and judicial domestic and international frameworks to exemplify how the judicial systems and the constitutional structures of a specific states shapes the values for peace and civic participation within a society and their interaction with the world. We then study the relationship between economic output and peace, as we can clearly identify that there is a direct relationship between economic growth and domestic and international peace in the world. Those nations at peace within their boundaries have higher domestic and economic growth and prosperity than those nations without, and those nations who are considered as peaceful in the world are more prone to have broader trade and trustful partnerships within the international community than those nations considered as warlike nations. Therefore, peaceful nations have larger international participation capacity at levels of the spectrum to include their legitimate input into the policymaking process and diplomatic dynamics of the international affairs. Not to mention, peaceful nations also have larger and more prosperous and sustainable alliances than violent nations in the world do. Therefore, the book, The Value of Peace, is a pragmatic, historical, and balanced source of knowledge that highlights some of the more constant issues of international relations. By focusing on peace as a positive variable for domestic and international justice and economic growth, the book highlights justice as the best mechanisms for conflict resolution, practices, and equalitarian efforts. The book also focuses on the processes of democracy building, defense capacity, and civic engagement of the people of a nation as a method to sustain peace and strengthen the judicial systems at a national and international level, via the reinforcement of educational programs, national infrastructural growth, multiculturalism approaches, religious tolerance, and the reinforcement of family values. The Value of Peace seeks to build within its readers the knowledge and capacity to make educated decisions that integrate moral and just conduct for the benefit of themselves and those around them in the context of their society and the world. The book also highlights the personal values of integrity, duty, honor, selfless service, courage, justice, pragmatism, collectivism, reciprocity, and respect as necessary for the construction of the democratic values within any nation that is prosperous and inclusive. The embracement of these values are observed as necessary for the elaboration of various societies at the domestic and international level, where the proper checks and balances exist within all its members in order to build more just, inclusive, and participative nations. By reading this book, you will also discover how much in terms of economic value not being and peace costs at a personal and national level, but also how much spiritual, economic, and material gains you could obtain if you embrace more peaceful measures to your lives and your societies in our contemporary world. Let us have peace in the pursuit of justice. Freddie Gray's father, Freddie Gray, was an African American man killed by the police in Baltimore, April 19, 2015.